There are whispers in the silent chambers of the soul, a deep, persistent ache that many dismiss as mere discontent. It is the subtle tremor of a spirit confined, yearning to break free from an unseen cage. Have you not felt it? That profound sense of being adrift, perpetually caught in a cycle of familiar patterns, a labyrinth where every turn leads back to the same echoing emptiness. This feeling, this pervasive stuckness, as you may call it, is not merely a figment of imagination or a flaw in your being. It is the tangible manifestation of an ancient, insidious conditioning, an invisible pattern woven into the very fabric of your perception, meticulously designed to tether your attention to a state of perpetual alert, of mere survival. For millennia, the wise among us, those who dared to look beyond the veil of everyday illusion, spoke of a primal code, a vibrational frequency that dictates the very architecture of our reality. This knowledge, often deemed too potent, too disruptive to the established order, was meticulously guarded, hidden away in texts now considered forbidden, their pages brittle with age, their truths shimmering with the light of forgotten civilizations. One such scroll, whispered to have originated from the lost libraries of Thoth, speaks not of what we do to manifest, but of what we are, of the unseen currents that sculpt our world from within. It suggests that our universe is not merely reacting to our overt desires, but to the silent, subatomic hum of our deepest energetic state, a frequency orchestrated by where our attention truly resides. Consider for a moment the world you inhabit. Is it not a grand tapestry, constantly rewoven by forces unseen? We are taught to believe in a reality that is solid, immutable, a fixed stage upon which our drama unfolds. Yet, the ancestral wisdom, passed down through secret lineages of alchemists and mystics, reveals a different truth. Reality is not a given. It is a continuously generated echo of an invisible programming. This programming is not accidental. It is diligently reinforced, day by day, breath by breath, by external systems that operate like grand vibrational orchestrators, the ceaseless hum of media, the hypnotic algorithms of social networks, the very structures of societal expectation. They are master weavers, subtly directing your attention, not to what you aspire to create, but to what they compel you to sustain. This is the great illusion, the hidden key to why manifestation often feels like a futile dance in the dark. It is not about the fervent wish uttered into the void, nor the grand vision meticulously charted on a board. True manifestation, the genuine alchemy of creation, hinges entirely upon what your attention, your most potent form of cosmic energy, embraces and sustains. The ancient mystics understood that our very consciousness acts as a focal point for this energy, and where we consciously or unconsciously direct it, there our reality coheres. This isn't just a philosophical musing. It is the fundamental principle of inner alchemy, the process of transforming base fear and limitation into spiritual illumination. The forbidden texts reveal that our current state of being, that knowing sensation of limitation, arises from a primal vibrational pattern, one that keeps us perpetually seeking, perpetually striving, yet paradoxically, never truly arriving. It's a loop, a closed circuit of conditioned response. But how does one break free from this intricate web of invisible programming? How does one recalibrate this internal vibrational code that has been so deeply ingrained? The journey begins with recognizing the first, most pervasive layer of this conditioning. It is the bedrock upon which all other limitations are built, the first of 6 vibrational levels that must be traversed for true freedom to unfurl. It is the level where the very concept of safety is distorted, where caution becomes a cage, and prudence a prison. It is where your attention, your most precious resource, is relentlessly drawn to the phantom of what is absent, the shadow of what might fail. This is the initial stratum of existence, the survival mode, and its cunning disguises are what we shall next unravel. For within its deceptive embrace lies the root of much human suffering and stagnation. This is the first trap of the veil, of illusion, the invisible web woven around our attention, conditioning it to a state of perpetual alert and survival. It is not a conscious choice, but a deeply ingrained vibrational pattern, a primordial echo that traps us in cycles of scarcity and insecurity. Think of it as a forbidden code, not of interdiction, but of oblivion, etched into the depths of our being through millennia of conditioning. Ancient wisdom, Sabadoria ancestral, warns, where your attention resides, your energy flows. And if your attention is incessantly fixed on what is lacking, on imminent danger, on the fragility of existence, you are unknowingly feeding that very vibration of stagnation. This is the core of the forbidden's vibrational code that keeps life feeling stuck. It manifests as a low-frequency layer that envelops the very cosmic energy, Energia Cosmica, pulsating through you, impeding its free and ascending flow, much like a subtle yet relentless field of distortion. The forbidden's texts, textos prohibidos, those veiled from the majority, but deciphered by true seekers of inner alchemy, alchemia interior, describe this condition as the chain of shadow or the shackle of primal fear. It is not an external shadow, but an internal projection, forged by the fear of loss, by attachment to the known, and by aversion to the unknown. Spiritual illumination, illumina call spiritual, cannot fully blossom where the mind is constantly engaged in vigilance. Imagine a garden where the rarest flowers require uninterrupted sunlight to bloom. If clouds of apprehension cover the sky of your consciousness, growth is inhibited, abundance recedes. This survival vibration prevents you from perceiving the hidden mysteries, mysterios occultos, unfolding around you, the synchronicities that manifest for those operating at higher frequencies. It distorts your perception of reality, making you see danger where there is opportunity, and limitation where there is boundless potential. The ancient Hermetic schools of Egypt, in their veiled teachings contained within the forbidden's texts, textos prohibidos, spoke of the necessity to untie the knots of time and space of the lower mind. These knots were not merely conceptual, but energetic, vibrational blockages that prevented us from ascending to higher planes of consciousness, and from accessing the fullness of cosmic energy, Energia Cosmica. They understood that attention conditioned to survival was the greatest of these knots, an invisible anchor that tethered us to the riverbed, preventing us from sailing into the deeper waters of truth and abundance. They promoted rituals of purification and profound meditation specifically aimed at realigning this attention, liberating it from the tyranny of fear and scarcity. Not to deny the existence of challenges, but to transcend fixation upon them, transforming the lead of apprehension into the gold of clarity and ancient wisdom, Sabadoria ancestral, by recognizing that your attention has been trained to operate in this red alert mode, a self-preservation program that has become a self-imposed prison. You begin to unravel the first of the hidden mysteries, mysterios occultos, behind your stagnation. You start to question, am I truly in danger now, or is my mind merely echoing an ancient pattern, an inherited program that drains my cosmic energy, Energia Cosmica, and keeps me in a state of perpetual non-attainment? It is in this sincere re-evaluation, in this courageous turning of attention inward, that true inner alchemy, alchemia interior, finds its starting point. Each time you consciously redirect your attention from a survival-based concern to a perspective of trust and expansion, you are, in effect, recalibrating this vital energy, elevating your own frequency. However, this layer of survival is merely the gateway to a complete understanding of the vibrational code. It manifests in countless forms, many so subtle they pass unnoticed. For if attention conditioned to survival is the first and most fundamental lock, how does it manifest in our pursuits of material security? in our affective relationships? And how does this incessant quest for possession, for control over the external world, reveal an even more subtle and profound layer of this forbidden vibrational code, one that awaits to be unveiled, and that may be even more cunning in its manifestation? Let us now consider the most insidious layer of this intricate veil, what we call invisible programming. It is the silent architecture upon which the very reality you perceive is constructed, not as a conscious desire of your heart, but as the result of a subtle weave, a myriad of vibrational codes that are continually reinforced by external systems, as ubiquitous as the air you breathe. This is not a conspiracy in the vulgar sense, but an evolution of the collective consciousness itself, a web of perception that solidifies through repetition and imitation. Since the dawn of humanity, ancestral wisdom has whispered about the illusory nature of the manifest world. In the hidden mysteries of the East, the concept of Maya describes the universe as an illusion, a tapestry of forms and appearances that veil ultimate reality. The Gnostics, in turn, spoke of archons, forces that are not necessarily malevolent, but that keep humanity imprisoned in a limited reality through the manipulation of perception and the generation of fears. These ancient understandings, often relegated to forbidden texts and esoteric traditions, reveal that the programming of reality is not a new phenomenon, but an archetypal pattern of consciousness. It is an energy field that shapes and refracts, according to the collective focus, a mirror that reflects not what is verbally desired, but what is energetically sustained. However, in modern times, this silent programming has gained unprecedented amplification. Vast media networks and ubiquitous social platforms have become the new temples and oracles, not only transmitting information, but more crucially, capturing and directing the cosmic energy of your attention. They don't just sell products. They sell narratives, defining what constitutes value, success, and scarcity. They don't just show reality. They shape it, feeding a constant stream of stimuli that imperceptibly program your mind and, by extension, your reality. This is why true manifestation does not reside in the act of vehemently wanting something. How many times have you ardently desired a new job, an ideal relationship, or financial abundance, only to see them slip through your fingers? The key is not in desire, but in what your attention sustains. If your attention, minute by minute, is bombarded with images of lack, incessant comparisons, news of crisis, and narratives of scarcity, even if your conscious mind wants abundance, your cosmic energy is actually fueling the opposite. Your attention becomes the fertile soil. What it dwells on, what it persistently nurtures, is what blossoms in your experience. Wanting is a seed thrown to the wind. Sustaining attention is the daily watering that makes it sprout. This is the turning point for inner alchemy. They threshold for spiritual enlightenment. Understanding that your reality is not an accident, but an accurate reflection of what your attention holds, demystifies the process of manifestation and empowers you in unimaginable ways. It's not an external, mystical force, but the inherent power of your own consciousness. The question that then arises is, if reality is programming and attention is the remote control, how free are we really to change the channel? Or are we trapped in the channel others have chosen for us? And more profoundly, who are the true programmers of this intricate web of perception we call life? If reality is programming and attention is the remote control, how free are we really to change the channel? Or are we stuck on the channel others have chosen for us? And more profoundly, who are the true programmers of this intricate web of perception we call life? The answer, my seeker, lies in the deepest layers of your existence, in what I call Level 1, survival. This is the foundation of programming, where fear doesn't present itself as an obvious monster, but rather cleverly disguises itself under the veils of responsibility and prudence. Think about it. How many of your reasonable concerns are actually subliminal manifestations of the panic of losing what you have or of never achieving what you deem necessary? Attention, at this stage, is a beacon that, instead of illuminating the path, casts its light only on the shadows. What's missing? What could go wrong? The infinite possibilities of lack and failure. Ancient wisdom has warned us for millennia. What you nourish with your attention grows. But at level 1, this truth is perverted. The cosmic energy that should flow toward creation and expansion is, paradoxically, drained and concentrated on maintaining a state of constant alert, of defense against imaginary or amplified threats. You become a guardian of the abyss, watching, to prevent it from swallowing you, and in this constant vigil, you end up feeding it with the very substance of your life. It's as if the mind, in its eagerness to protect, builds an invisible cage, where worry is the bars and scarcity, the eternal landscape. This is one of the great hidden mysteries of human existence. How the most basic instinct, that of self-preservation, can be so easily distorted to become a prison. The ancient forbidden texts, some of them discovered in sealed jars and forgotten caves, such as the Nag Hammadi scrolls, whisper of this condition. They speak of archons and demiurges, not as external demons, but as internal or collective. Forces that keep humanity deluded in materiality and fear, preventing full spiritual enlightenment. They are not malevolent entities in the ordinary sense, but rather patterns of thought and frequency that perpetuate themselves through unexamined attention. The obsession with having and keeping, with security and disaster prevention, diverts your cosmic energy from horizons of unlimited potential. You become the programmer of your own scarcity, feeding it with every thought of lack, every alarming news you consume, every comparison that diminishes you. True inner alchemy begins here, in the ability to recognize that this responsibility and prudence may actually be the most sophisticated traps of fear. It requires you to question, who is the true I that is afraid? And in recognizing this pattern, the inevitable question arises, what would happen if your attention were deliberately redirected, not to what is lacking, but to what is abundant, not to what can go wrong, but to what can flourish? What if the true responsibility is to free yourself from this ancestral survival programming, to ascend to a level where attention is a creative force, not a tool of defense? The answer to this question reveals the core of level 2, control. When attention, instead of being a creative force, becomes a tool of defense, you find yourself trapped in an incessant cycle of urgency and effort. Cosmic energy, which should flow freely toward manifestation, is channeled toward containment, toward maintaining a wall against what is feared. It is the exhaustion of body and spirit, not through productive action, but through constant resistance. The predominant vibration in this state is that of distrust, a distrust not only of the other, but of the very tapestry of existence, of the intelligence of the universe. And like a faithful mirror, the universe responds, offering you more and more situations that seem to demand your control, reinforcing the belief that you must be the guardian of every detail, the puppeteer of every event. The ancient masters of inner alchemy, whose ancient wisdom is often veiled in hidden mysteries and certain forbidden texts, such as the hermetic fragments discovered on papyrus, or the emerald tablets that whisper universal truths, understood this dynamic perfectly. They taught that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. What is within is without. If your internal perception is that the world is chaotic and needs to be tamed, then the external world will present chaos to be tamed. The need for control arises from the illusion of separation, the belief that you are an isolated, vulnerable being in an indifferent or even hostile universe. This illusion generates an insatiable thirst for security, leading to perpetual exhaustion, for there is no truly absolute control. Imagine the myth of Sisyphus, endlessly pushing the boulder up the mountain, only to see it roll back down. This is the metaphor for existence at the level of control. Cosmic energy is dissipated in this futile effort to dominate the indomitable, to contain the natural flow of life. Every time you feel compelled to intervene, to micromanage, to plan for every contingency, you are not exercising power, but rather feeding the karmic wheel of distrust. The forbidden texts, sometimes called apocryphal or Gnostic, the same ones, that alluded to the archons as internal forces that perpetuate. Illusion often allude to mind traps or shadow prisons that the individual constructs for themselves, deluded by the false sense of security that control promises. They are keys to the spiritual enlightenment that this cycle of constant effort impedes. Inner alchemy, in this context, is not about transmuting lead into material gold, but rather distrust into trust, control into flow, exhaustion into vitality. It is the recognition that power resides not in the brute force of will trying to shape the exterior, but in the ability to align one's frequency with that of the universe. The hidden mysteries reveal that true security lies not in the rigidity of one's defenses, but in the flexibility of one's surrender to what is, and to the wisdom that exists in the flow. This is the great irony. The more you try to control the she, more out of control the universe seems to become, as it reflects your inner vibration of chaos and need for imposed order. It's a paradox few realize, trapped in the narrative that more effort and more control are the solution, when in fact, they perpetuate the problem. Ancient wisdom has always whispered that liberation lies not in holding the reins tighter, but in letting go and allowing the current to carry you into a realm beyond your limited comprehension. Think of the ancient Egyptian priests and their complex rituals for controlling the Nile, or the Persian magicians and their attempts to predict and manipulate fate. They sought order through an external domain, but the deeper ancient wisdom, present in secluded shrines and whispered teachings, pointed to an inner mastery, to the mastery of one's own being. This mastery is not about forcing the river to change its course, but about learning to navigate its currents with grace and purpose, trusting that the river will take you where you need to go, even if the destination is not what you're limited. Mind imagine what would happen then if you let go of the reins, if you allowed cosmic energy to flow through you instead of trying to direct it with an iron fist. Many fear the abyss this would represent, the loss of any structure, the fall into the unknown. But what if this abyss were not emptiness, but rather the portal to a new level of existence, where the need for control dissolves, revealing an inexhaustible source of resources and a deep connection with the flow of life itself? What if true? Power lay not in control, but in liberation? This is the threshold of the next step, an invitation to transcend the exhaustion of mastery and embrace the fullness of the invisible, the unpredictable, the limitless. By transcending the desire to control the flow, we open ourselves to the essence of coherence, the harmony between thought, emotion, and action. This is not a mere superficial agreement, but a profound symphony where the mind does not struggle against the heart, and both move in unison with the purest impulse of the being. This is what the ancient masters called true inner alchemy, the transmutation of the lead of internal discord into the gold of authenticity. When what you think, what you feel, and what you do are one, cosmic energy flows through you unimpeded, manifesting your highest purpose with an invisible but undeniable force. However, there is a subtle veil, a blind spot that often prevents this sacred fusion. It is the trap of external validation. Society, in its desire for order and conformity, teaches us to seek the reflection of our truth in the eyes of others, in the approval of others, in imposed rites and dogmas. We think we are coherent when our actions are applauded, when our emotions are confirmed by the popular chorus, or when our thoughts align with the dominant narrative. This is not coherence. It is an echo, a mirror. Consider the Gnostic teachings, sometimes hidden in forbidden texts and persecuted by established doctrines. They spoke of a pleroma, a state of plenitude and unity, and of the divine spark within. Each person, trapped in a world of illusions created by external forces. The search for spiritual enlightenment along these paths involved dissolving belief in these external illusions and recognizing inner truth, the direct knowledge of the divine within oneself, independent of any validation from a demiurge or an earthly order. True Gnosticism cared nothing for external approval. It sought truth in its most naked and essential state. This search for external validation is what keeps us chained to the cycle of repetition, performance, and dissatisfaction. How many times have you silenced the voice of your deepest intuition because it didn't align with what was acceptable? How many times have you acted against your own heart to receive praise, recognition, or illusory security? Each time you do this, you create a fracture, a dissonance between your innermost layers and the persona you project to the world. You become an instrument playing out of tune, preventing perfect resonance with cosmic energy. Ancient wisdom, whispered in the most remote sanctuaries and in the hidden mysteries of initiatory schools, has always pointed to the opposite, self-knowledge as the only true measure. This is not arrogance or isolation, but a spiritual self-sufficiency that allows you to be a beacon, rather than a leaf blown by the wind of others' opinions. The ancient oracles, such as that of Delphi, with its precept, "Know thyself," were not centers of prophecy for the external future, but portals to introspection, to the discovery of the destiny that lay inscribed not in the stars, but in one's own being. They understood that true coherence arises when you don't need an echo to know your voice is real. To transcend this blind spot, it takes the courage to shed the masks molded by the gaze of others. It's an act of pure inner alchemy, burning away what's false so that what's true can emerge, unadorned, without the need for applause. It's a return to your essence, to the point where your mind, your heart, and your actions dance in perfect synchrony, not to please anyone, but because this is your highest nature. But how can we truly know if we are free from the shackles of external validation? How can we distinguish the voice of our soul from the voice of the social echoes we internalize? The journey through these hidden mysteries of self-discovery is long and fraught with shadows, and the next layer to be uncovered leads us on to even more slippery ground, that of the final resistance of identity. We now reach the threshold of an uncomfortable but profoundly liberating truth. Genuine manifestation lies not in shaping the world to your will, but in being fully who you are, regardless of the external environment, the expectations of others, or the storms raging within the visible landscape. This is where the self, the ego, reveals itself as the portal's most fierce guardian, the last dragon to be confronted before true spiritual enlightenment. The ego is not merely a voice of doubt. It is a fortress built with the bricks of past approvals and fears, a shadow that casts itself on the walls of your perception, making you believe your existence depends on a reflection in the eyes of others. It whispers that you need external validation, that your identity is a social construct, that without the framework of recognition, you are nothing. This is its final resistance, for it understands that by anchoring yourself in your immutable essence, your inner sovereignty becomes absolute, and the need for control or external approval vanishes like mist in the sun. The ego fears its own dissolution, the inner alchemy that would transform you from master to servant of your soul. Ancient wisdom, hidden in the hidden mysteries of forgotten traditions, has always warned against this deception. The ancient Egyptians, for example, through their coffin texts and Book of the Dead, not only described the soul's journey after physical death, but, metaphorically, the journey of consciousness through the veils of illusion while still alive. The weighing of the heart against Maat's sentence was not merely a post-mortem judgment. It was a daily invitation to align the heart, the center of true will and emotion, with universal truth, shedding the weight of the ego and its pretensions. A light heart, free from the shackles of identification with the transitory, was what allowed the crossing to the fields of Aru, the inner paradise. Other forbidden texts, such as Gnostic fragments discovered at Nag Hammadi, reveal the figure of the demiurge, an imperfect creative entity responsible for a flawed material world, and the archons, his servants who attempt to trap the human soul in ignorance and materiality. Although often interpreted literally as external beings, we can see in them a powerful metaphor for the ego itself and its deceptive manifestations. The archons would then be the thought patterns, limiting beliefs, and social attachments that feed on our energy, distancing us from our true divine spark. This spark is your intrinsic identity, the pure cosmic energy that resides within you, and the ego, in its final resistance, seeks to obscure it, diverting your attention to performance and approval rather than authenticity and emanation. This is the crucial point when your manifestation emerges from who you truly are, and not from what you do or possess. You become a pure channel for cosmic energy, a being that attracts and reflects the reality of your inner self. It is the pinnacle of inner alchemy, the transmutation of the lead of egoic identity into the gold of divine essence. The ego's resistance manifests as fear of rejection, insignificance, and loss of control. It creates a labyrinth of self-sabotage, procrastination, and the relentless pursuit of external validation, because its nature is to keep you trapped in the illusory comfort zone of the known, even though it is a prison of cosmic proportions, a microcosm of that matrix of illusions described by the ancients. But how can we discern this subtle voice of the ego that tries to drag us back to the margins of social and material recognition? How can the truth of your spiritual enlightenment fully manifest when there is this constant internal struggle? The path to dismantling this last resistance lies not in battle, but in non-judgmental observation, in the deep understanding that the ego is not your enemy, but a misinformed guardian, a distorted echo of a greater purpose. And this understanding opens the door to a new level of power, one that resides not in force, but in the silent dissolution of what is false. How then can we strip away this final veil, revealing the totality of who we truly are? And how can this silent revelation reverberate through the very fabric of both reality, manifesting not only the self but also the universe in its true light? This is the next layer of the silent revelation that dissolves the false is not the end, but the gateway to realms where reality is woven even before thought. We now enter the quantum and divine levels of vibration, the most subtle and powerful layers of what we call existence. At the quantum level, the universe reorganizes itself, not in response to your formulated desires, but to the very vibrational essence of your being. Think of this not as a request, but as an emission. Here, inner alchemy reaches its most radical depth, for we are no longer transmuting identity, but tuning into the very frequency of creation. The ancient masters, holders of ancestral wisdom, understood that form follows vibration, and primordial vibration precedes intention. They whispered of the voice of silence, the word that precedes light, a concept echoed in diverse traditions, from the Vedic Om to the biblical Fiat Lux. But what does this really mean? It means that there is a level where your presence, your quality of being, is already emitting a pattern into the unified field of cosmic energy, and that field, by its responsive nature, begins to reconfigure itself accordingly. Imagine that the universe is not a passive repository of resources to be exploited, but an infinitely sensitive mirror, reflecting not what you think you want, but what you are in your innermost vibration. The hidden mysteries of societies. Like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and medieval alchemists were not limited to transforming metals, but to awakening this inner resonance, to tuning the human instrument so that it could vibrate in unison with universal laws. They knew that true magic was not external manipulation, but the internal synchronicity that generated an effortless external reorganization. There are passages in certain forbidden texts, often written in symbolic codes to protect their knowledge from unprepared minds, that describe rituals of creative silence, where the practitioner emptied the mind of all form and desire, allowing the pure vibration of the I Am to manifest. This is the point where spiritual enlightenment transcends mere understanding to become a state of functioning being, where reality bends to your vibration, even before a conscious desire arises. It's not about doing something, but about being something in its purest essence. And beyond this quantum realm, we find the divine level, the apex where the very need to manifest dissolves. This is the point of totality, where there is no lack, no desire, for everything already is. It is union with the whole, a state of pure, undifferentiated consciousness, where duality ceases and the individual self merges with the cosmic self. The ancient sages, when describing nirvana, moksha, or union with the Tao, pointed to this reality beyond manifestation. It is not a place you go to, but a state you recognize. In it, inner alchemy culminated. Lead was not only transmuted into gold, but gold dissolved into light, into the source of all matter and antimatter. The hidden mysteries reveal that at this level, cosmic energy is not something you manipulate, but something you are. Ancient wisdom teaches that this is the true home of the soul, where spiritual enlightenment is complete, without trace of shadow or illusion. The question then is not how to manifest more or better, but how to transcend the very need for manifestation. How can we align so deeply with the pure vibration of being that reality folds of itself, not as a tool of our ego, but as an inherent reflection of our divine essence? And what happens when even this need fades, and wholeness is the only truth? It is a paradox that defies the linear mind, an invitation to direct experience that the forbidden texts rarely dare to describe openly, preferring the language of metaphor and enigma. They do so because words fail. This is the threshold of a new perception, where the eye does not seek, but sees. What doors open when you operate from a state where reality is already manifest in its fullness before any desire? How does this alter our interaction with the very threads of destiny? And what does it truly mean to be the craftsman of one's own reality when even the tool dissolves in the Creator's hand? And so we arrive not at an end, but at a new beginning of understanding. The true artisan of reality does not merely wield tools. They become the very source from which all reality flows. The ultimate revelation is that the power you seek is not outside you. It is the luminous essence of your being, always complete, always abundant. How does this profound shift in perception change your daily experience of reality? And what does it truly mean to manifest from a state of pure, effortless presence? Share your deepest insights in the comments below. If this journey into the hidden truths has resonated with your soul, please like this video, subscribe for more profound discoveries, and share it with those ready to awaken. For our next exploration into the fabric of existence, I urge you to watch Unveiling the Quantum. Mind, beyond thought can form. Until then, may your inner light guide your path.